A big hello to you. It's so great to see you and I hope I find you well. Today we're back out on the Garden Railway and it's quite an exciting development. We've got two big projects that I'm going to do in today's video. The first one, quite important to be able to run those trains, is to do some of the electrics. Now this is going to involve bridging the rail joiners with wires, and this means that we can still have the expansion but we've got good electrical continuity, and I'm going to do it in such a way that it'll probably be quite well hidden in the ballast. And that brings us on to the second thing that we're doing, the ballast. And outdoors, this is a little bit different from your loft or your spare bedroom at the railway. Here, I'm going to be using some fairly coarse sand. It's sort of the halfway house between sand and gravel. And I'm going to mix it up as a kind of dry mix with some cement. And then I'm going to just spread that into the track. Now, the track is elevated slightly off the base, and this was done on purpose because it allowed us a degree of being able to adjust the heights using those screws that you saw on a previous episode. We now fill in underneath and it's going to bond that track in. This track is going nowhere once we're done, and we're going to be doing that quite carefully and then wetting it down to activate that cement. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. I've told you what we're going to do, so let's get on with it and get it done. Don't forget as well that if you really enjoyed today's video, give us a like and also consider sharing it to social media as well. And you can also check us out over on Patreon and help support the channel to keep making the videos that you want to see. And of course, as always, today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model 00 gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
But I'm really excited. Garden railways are so much fun and I've really enjoyed this project so far. But we're not quite at running trains yet. Well, let's see how far we can get today. Come with me. Let's crack on. What I've gone and done is prepped up some quite thick wire that I had languishing around up in the loft, and I thought, you know, rather than going for that kind of weedy stuff which is very prone to getting broken, I'd go for what is actually some quite thick copper wire, and then we're going to have a go at soldering bridges across the rail expansion, and we're going to give ourselves quite a big loop so that there's plenty of room for expansion. Now when it comes to soldering outdoors, it's actually exactly the same as indoors. I've got my nice hot soldering iron and I'm going to be using plenty of flux, and you're just going to have to keep applying a lot of heat and just scraping away with the tip of the soldering iron. We're trying to break through that oxide layer. The no clean flux is actually really good at this, and it was just a little bit more perseverance, but we seem to be getting it done. You can see that the solder does eventually take. Now I'm using a little bit more than I might do inside. I want to avoid weak joints or potential for dry solder joints. If we get a good square inch of copper and solder on the sides of these rails, then it's not going to be prone to breaking free. And it's simply the case, we're just going to work our way round the layout, just bridging each join in turn. In this area, I'm going to be using the DCC Concepts ABC shuttle, and you might be thinking quite daring to use this outside, but as long as it's not submerged in water, it's going to be just fine. And I'm going to place this underneath the bridge using a hot glue gun, and I'm going to feed the wires through so it'll be quite unobtrusive. And finally, once we've got all that set up, just hot glue gun the ABC board under the bridge. And the bridge itself will protect it from the worst of the weather. When it comes to the ABC section at the back, I've made sure that we've already got an insulating rail joiner in place, and for now I'm just going to have a couple of wires already soldered on that ultimately is what we're going to connect that ABC board to. The very last piece has an insulating fish plate, and the two wire tails you see are soldered either side, and they'll eventually go to the ABC board. This is going to be the temporary end of the line. We built the brick base, but until that conifer tree gets taken away, we're going to be making use of the ABC shuttle feature, hopefully, to mean that we have an out and back that gets this far. You can see further back, I've got the bridging wires around the fish plates and more around there, and I've done a little bit of cleaning because there's so much of this conifer detritus keeps falling on everything. But I'm going to do the ballasting now, and this is important out here because this will actually bed the track in, and you can see there we've got some little bits of conifer that they get everywhere. This little bit of track is not actually secured just yet. I'm going to actually use the ballast to get this secured in place. This is an area where I've seen lots of different methods put forward as a solution for ballasting in the garden, and actually a lot of people don't even get that far. They just don't ballast the track because they're not quite sure what to use. But I knew from the outset that I wanted something very, very solid for the base out here. I don't want the track to be able to move around. Now that was a problem with the old double O gauge layout. And the previous O gauge layout, I never got far enough to ballast anything. And it really did show when I was taking the track up, and also when I tried to run trains, it was all over the place. And there was plenty of movement, which actually brought in things like kinks on the curves, which you really don't want. So I've gone to a lot of effort to get this track exactly where I want it, and to make sure that those curves are nicely smoothed out and really quite level. So the ballasting is quite easy. I've got some fine granules which I think they're being sold for laying concrete slabs just to blind the surface to get a nice smooth level. And I'm going to be mixing that with cement in the wheelbarrow behind me, and that should make a dry mix, well, a dry-ish mix. I'm just going to get to it and ballast the whole thing in one go. Well, that is quite hard work, but I got it all mixed up with quite a lot of cement. In fact, the last of the cement that I've got, and I'm going to start using that now as ballast. And this is a little bit more like you might lay ballast on a real railway, I guess, because we're actually using it as structural rather than scenic. Well, it is a bit scenic, but it is largely structural as well. And we can just use a trowel to move that around on the layout, just making sure that we tamp it down into the track bed and just gently brush the tops of the rails clear. It's quite a therapeutic process, and I've got to do the entire layout thus far in the garden in one go. For two reasons: I don't want any joins, and also I've got a lot of this stuff, so I want to make sure that I use it up in one big hit. You need quite a dry day for this, because whilst you're levelling it, you don't want it to start to become quite wet, because it'll just turn to mortar and will go everywhere. But once you're quite happy with how that dry mix is laid out into the track, and tamp it down with a brush. I use one that's sold for actually applying paint to fences and sheds. Then it's a case of gently wetting this down. Go easy with the water, don't use a hose pipe because you'll start to make it move about. And don't be afraid to get in there with the brush and make sure that the tops of the rails are clear, and just try and expose all the sleepers as well. You might get a few places where the dry mix kind of slumps. As it wets, all of the air gets forced out of it. And you can just build that up. I use a paint scraper for this and just move it around a little bit. But because we've got that gritty texture that we pre-mixed as a dry mix, the end result, even after it sets, still looks quite ballasty. It's not a smooth mortar, it's very angular, and that's exactly what we want. So you can see that the ballasting has had a few days to harden off, and it's done just that. It's very, very solid. And if you're worried about the cement aspect of it covering all the sleepers, well, look at this. Because we were careful to brush the tops, that very thin coat of cement has actually mostly come off, and the rest will just weather off naturally, bringing up this really quite lovely track work from Pico that we're using. All in all, it's quite an easy process, and you can see that the track itself is going nowhere. So with expansion and contraction, the rails will slide a little bit in the chairs, but the sleepers are not going to bow out in the process, and that's exactly what we want. So there you have it, and I hope you really enjoyed this as much as I have building it. And you can see that the garden railway has certainly come together. The next step is going to be getting it running. But we've done all the hard work now, so really it's just a case of cleaning the track and getting power to the rails. And we talked way back at the beginning about the Hornby HM7000 Bluetooth control, and that's going to mean that out in the garden we don't need to have expensive control equipment. We can just apply that basic power to the track, and then we can control everything from a smartphone. But I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments. What do you think about this project and how it's coming together? Is there anything that maybe you'd suggest, or anything that you're going to take away and maybe incorporate into your model railway in the garden? I'd love to hear from you. And certainly please like, share and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and check us out over on Patreon, where you can help support the channel to keep making the videos that you want to see, and we've got a number of different tiers of rewards for that. And also you can check out the full merch store down below just underneath this video, where you can pick up your own t-shirts, hoodies, mugs and so much more, with Billy's replacement speakers, Gronk It Up, My Railway, My Rules, Terrier Fest and so much more. But until next time, you take great care of yourself and happy modelling. Take care, bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCT decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double-O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world, with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com, and don't miss out on your latest logo.
I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.